Who is the best total drama host? Don is charming, Chris is the OG, Derek and Trevor are the dynamic duo, and Crystal is the daughter of a legend. Every one of them left their mark and totally changed the seasons they hosted. With the release of the new Total Drama Island and Disventure Camp Season 1, we decided to make a video in order to establish once and for all who is the best total drama host. To make this video as objective as possible, we chose 4 categories in which we will compare the hosts: humor, experience, empathy, and charisma. For every category, we will give each host a grade from 1 to 5. In the end, we will make the final score of each one of them and see who would be the best total drama host. Quick disclaimer, in this video, we will take Derek and Trevor as a team. So let's start with the first category, humor. We will begin with Don. Don was basically made by the creators to be the opposite of Chris McLean. He is more professional, doesn't enjoy seeing the contestants getting hurt, and punishes them when they cheat at the game. Yet, the creators still made him almost as funny as Chris. We say almost because 1, he had some really average dad jokes.
So, as a Canadian ice dancing team, you probably hear this a lot. 3rd place!
And 2, since he is not as mean as Chris, his jokes were more balanced in order to not offend the contestants too much. Although it is nice for him to do that, this kinda made him less funny. So Don gets a 4. Now let's move to the OGs. Although Chris is definitely the biggest maniac in the list, he is also the funniest. The fact that he didn't really care about the contestants or their feelings made him have some of the funniest moments in all of Total Drama history. Despite the fact that over the seasons his character became way too evil, he still kept his humor and managed to entertain us in almost every episode. So for humor, Chris gets a 5 out of 5. The next ones are Derek and Trevor. For those who don't know, they are the host of the first season of Disventure Camp, which is a YouTube series made by a channel called Odd Nation Cartoons. Their personalities are pretty much based on the stereotype of good cop, bad cop. They actually had a lot of potential, but unfortunately there was too little screen time for them to show it, since most of the focus was put around their story with the illegal stuff and less to their personality. They only had a few jokes that also felt too forced and average, so Derek and Trevor get 2 for the humor. The next one is Crystal. She's the host of the 2nd season of Disventure Camp, and also Chris's daughter. Yet unlike Chris, she tried to have a more professional approach to her job. Although she seems to have borrowed some narcissism and a little madness from her father, she didn't really have his dark humor, or not any humor in general. She based her charm more on her capability of creating a good vibe rather than jokes addressed to the contestants. So she gets a 1. The second category is experience. Although in Redonkulous Race there is no mention of anything about Don's past, he's a great host and seems to have a lot of experience. Yet, he is not as good at creating drama as Chris, so we can guess he hosted some broadcasts that were more chill like a talk show. But in the end, we have to be fair, and since there is no clear evidence about Don's past in the television industry, we will give him a 3. As it is mentioned in the show, Chris had a lot of experience before hosting Total Drama. First, he joined a boy band named Fametown. After the band broke up, Chris started hosting a cooking show named Keep It Plain with Chris McLean, which was unfortunately cancelled after only 1 episode. Later on, he went to compete in a figure skating show, and then he even made a movie about a badminton player in a zombie apocalypse. So for all the stuff he did, we will give Chris a 5. In Disventure Camp, the creators didn't really give us any hints about Derek and Trevor's past before arranging and hosting the show. However, if it is to be assumed based on their enthusiasm about releasing the show on TV, we can guess that this was their first time as hosts. So we will give them just 1 point. Sorry boys, game is game. Now Crystal is Chris's daughter, so even if she didn't have any experience of her own, we can bet that Chris taught her every secret and trick he knows. Yet in the first episode of Disventure Camp Season 2, we find out that the producers of the show actually chose her to be the host without Chris being involved. We kinda figured that out since on the phone she tells Chris,
"I don't care. I was selected for this job because no one wanted you hosting the show. So don't tell me what to do because I definitely don't want to end up like you."
So most likely in this universe, Chris is kinda hated by the audience, and Crystal managed to make her own reputation. So we will give her a 3. The next category is empathy. Despite the fact that Don is still a narcissist like Chris, he had a lot of moments when he showed empathy towards the contestants and worried for their safety. Except for the ice dancers, he really hated them. Don even once showed his condolences to the family of an intern that passed away during a challenge test. something that Chris would have never done, so we will give him a 4. Well, in Chris's case, there is probably no point in analyzing this stuff too much since we all know that he literally enjoys making the contestants' life as hard as possible, and that he destroyed the lives of multiple people. So here, Chris gets a 1. Unfortunately, empathy is for sure McLean's weakest spot. Derek and Trevor's case is kinda weird because Trevor seems to have some kind of empathy towards the contestants, while Derek seems to be an alternative version of Chris from Total Drama Revenge of the Island. Yet both of them agreed to hire a wanted criminal to do their dirty work, so neither of them are too empathetic after all, especially considering all the damage they did to nature. So we will give them a 2. Although she's Chris's daughter, Crystal is the most empathetic host on this list. Despite her maniacal tendencies that she probably inherited from her father, she constantly tries to be a good person and not let the job make her end up like Chris. She even hired a contestant as an intern because he didn't have anywhere else to go, and made him tell her every time she was acting too much like Chris. There were moments during the season when she kinda exaggerated, but in the end she found her balance. So for empathy, Crystal gets a 5. The last category is charisma. Don is most likely the most charismatic host Total Drama could have gotten. His initial name was literally Charlie Chiselton. Although a cool name, the creators thought it was too much, so they decided to change it with Don. But even his official name is pretty special, considering that in Spanish and Italian, saying Don is like saying Sir or Mr. to show respect. Besides his phenomenal name, he has a very positive attitude towards the show, and most of the contestants. The way he talks and behaves shows clearly that he knows how to keep the audience's attention. His personality is not as extreme as Chris's, and he manages to keep things cool all the time. So for charisma, Don gets a 5 out of 5. Now, let's be serious. It's Chris McLean we're talking about, so of course he has a lot of charisma. Yet, as we said earlier, after the events of Total Drama World Tour, he became a little too narcissistic and way too obsessed over the ratings. Some fans even complained that he felt way too much as a villain and was unrecognizable from the Chris we knew and loved from Total Drama Island. So for charisma, Chris gets a 4. Moving on to Derek and Trevor. In the first season of Disventure Camp, the creators paid too much attention to the contestants and not enough to the host's energy and personality. So even if Derek and Trevor had some potential to be interesting hosts, they didn't have the time to show it. So they will get a 2. Even though Crystal has a pleasant personality, we can't exactly say that she is charismatic. Of course, her character development was an interesting part of the storyline in the second season of Disventure Camp. Yet, she didn't really bring too much entertainment to the show itself, like Chris or Don did for their shows. It's like Total Drama needs Chris, Redonkulous Race needs Don, but Disventure Camp doesn't really need Crystal, so we will give her a 3. So, in the 4th place with 7 points are Derek and Trevor. They didn't really have anything iconic about themselves during the season. Just to be clear, we don't say that they are bad hosts, only that the next ones on this list are better. In 3rd place with 12 points is Crystal. She had an amazing storyline and kept us guessing until the last moments if she would turn like her father or not. Certainly, the fact that she is Chris's daughter made her a lot more interesting to begin with, but her personality did the rest. Now, in 1st place, the best Total Drama host with 16 points is Don. Even if Don won with a difference of only 1 point, with Chris having 15, we can say that in the end he is the best host. Although Chris had certain moments when he was a better host, he also had some pretty disappointing moments. In contrast, Don maintained his charisma over all the periods he hosted, even if it was only 1 season. By the way, remember our clip when we said that Total Drama Reunion is coming back? Well, now it is official. Blue Studios just released a trailer for his new Total Drama movie called Reunion: The Final Tribute. We also have a video with our prediction about this movie, which we will leave in the description. So there it is, guys. Who do you think is the best Total Drama host? Make sure to tell us in the comments. Take care and see you next time with a brand new video.